Lake Society magazine is Minneapolis' premier target market boutique lifestyle and design publication. It embodies the unique lifestyles and design of the Minneapolis City Lakes neighborhoods. From Lake of the Isles to Lake Harriet, it showcases the best in local design projects by both premier builders, architects, and interior designers in this area. Lake Society magazine has the look and feel of a national publication with glossy covers, high-end finishes. It's mailed directly to upper bracket single-family homeowners in the City Lakes area, and it's the perfect local coffee tabletop publication. Subscriptions can also be available through the website lakesocietymagazine.com. Additionally, publisher and founder Karen Steckel has over 27 years in the local magazine publishing industry and has a passion for high-end photography and quality graphics. Her commitment to quality, visual simplicity, and beauty are strongly reflected in her beautiful Lake Society magazine. If you're here local in Minnesota and want to network with other builders, we have the Curious Builder Collective. You can head to our website to find out what that is all about. We have 3 more 3-hour sessions coming up this year. We're basically a small group that has a room for 10 more builders. We currently have 20. We're going to cap it at 30. This is a way to test your theories, learn from each other, and elevate your brand and your business. Head to thecuriousbuilderpodcast.com to find out more about the Curious Builder Collective. Today on the Curious Builder Podcast, we have Alyssa Abbott from Olive & Vine Socials, and it was a treat to have an interview with Alyssa. I've been working with her for a couple of years and walking her through her business strategy and just really how important it is to celebrate businesses, but really tell stories. And so Alyssa really focuses on Pinterest and blog strategy along with your SEO strategy. So if you're looking to take your business to another level in terms of marketing and really expand your reach, or you just want to know more about the vague proposition of what is Pinterest and what is a blog, this episode is for you. If you already know what it is, I still think you should listen because there's a lot of in-depth information here. So without further ado, let's talk with Alyssa Abbott from Olive & Vine Socials. Welcome to the Curious Builder Podcast. I'm Mark Williams, your host. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, Alyssa Abbott with Olive & Vine Socials. Welcome, Alyssa.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
This is so fun to have you on. So for the audience, Alyssa and I have been working together for about 2 years, and I was looking for a virtual assistant, and you were working with Chelsea Lopez, one of my videographers, and she said, well, Alyssa does amazing work for me. Why don't you guys start working? And so we met, and I think to best explain you to me is like, you can complete my sentences without me even saying it. Sometimes I speak very erratically with not a lot of complete thought, and you've been an amazing part of our team and not only launching the Curious Builder podcast, but sort of part there for the whole rebranding of Mark Williams Custom Homes. And you've been a huge help to me professionally, and I've enjoyed you immensely personally. So that's my intro to Alyssa Abbott.
Well, I'm grateful that Chelsea connected us, and it has been so much fun working with you and growing with you. I started with you, right when you rebranded and started the podcast, and man, that feels like a long time ago and no time at all. So
in that phase, it's been pretty wild because I think we rebranded in the August or September, and I can't remember when did we first start? Were you there for the original iterations of all the branding? Or I think Kim Sen, who we had early on, who helped me with all my rebranding and has kind of taken a step back from the branding. You kind of stepped in as a transition period when she sort of left. Is that right?
Yeah. So we started, December 2022. Yeah, I think was that when. Yeah. And so, all of it. I mean, I came in, I never really knew the old branding as well, but pretty much we were just implementing everything. And I came in just as a VA, and you also had me. So I was just kind of doing anything and everything.
You were my Swiss Army knife. You were MacGyver 3.0.
I did everything. Yes. And then you also, I think you had just gone to the coalition, because that's why Chelsea had thought about connecting us. And you were interested in Pinterest, probably from learning about that, the coalition, and some of the benefits there. So I think that was kind of the initial start, was Pinterest and some VA work.
Yeah, that's funny because it was actually 2 years ago in May of May of 22 where I went to the first contractor coalition, which is funny because we're recording this 6 days before it's coming to Minneapolis. So by the time this airs, the contractor coalition will have already happened in Minneapolis. But that being said, and I've talked about it a lot, just how much, our personal brand has grown and how much I've grown in networking with people across the country as well. But Morgan Molitor had basically done an entire presentation on Pinterest and SEO and blogging that went completely over my head. I was so locked in on, changing my building practices. I'm like, well, man, I don't need SEO. I mean, everyone knows a little bit what SEO is, but it always ended up being like, oh, a bigger company is going to do that. And, blogging and social and all this stuff, like, oh yeah, that's not for me. That's what my wife does. That's what she loves to read. That's not what I do. I'm a builder. And oh, was I wrong? And man, have you opened my eyes to that. So we'll kind of get into some of that today. But before we kind of dive down the road of what you've done and what you do, let's go a little bit into your history just as an introduction to the audience. I mean, you're out in California, and tell us a little bit about how you even got into, kind of the social game and why, Pinterest and blogging has been such a fulfilling and central part of your business now.
Yeah. So my husband and I actually are, mostly his kind of full-time gig is we're wedding photographers and videographers. And so we started that in 2018, went full-time, and the best year ever to go full-time for weddings, 2020. I literally quit my corporate job. I was in college admissions in March of 2020. And then the next week, everything shut down. But everything worked out. Everything is fine. It was a interesting, obviously time to be alive. But we grew and grew. And part of in 2020, I had been managing the back end of our business and found, everyone in the wedding industry, has a blog and they share the weddings that they do. And so I was like, well, I'll blog. I love writing. I can do that. And so I bought a course that had Pinterest and blogging. It was like a bundle course. And so I was like, okay, this sounds great. And I dove in and I just was like, I love this so much. And there's so much to this. And, just kind of fell in love with it. So I did that for us for a while. And then I kind of realized I could do this for other people. And also kind of just running the back end of our business. That's kind of where I got in with the VA stuff. And so I put it out there on a business Facebook group that I did VA work. And I think that's where Chelsea found me and trusted me. And so I dove in with that and it just kind of snowballed from there. So I did, the VA stuff for a while and then realized I really love the Pinterest and the blogging and the SEO strategy. And I feel like that's something that I could really grow a business in and maybe scale someday. And so we, I mean, that's kind of the origin story. It came from being a photographer.
What was it specifically that you loved about the blogging? Because you're one of your greatest assets. I mean, you're a phenomenal writer. And, one of the things that might be a barrier entry to a lot of people that, maybe read blogs or see blogs is you see, the photo. It's like you need to be part graphic designer because it has to be appealing and look attractive or who wants to read it, especially digitally. And then you also have to be a very thoughtful writer, but it kind of needs to get the point across quite quickly. And but also have meaningful information. So it's a total different subset of writing. And how did you know that you had a talent for that? Because your talent is incredible in that department.
Thank you. I honestly, I think some of it is I'm very detail oriented. I love the strategy of it all. So, I mean, sure, you could write a blog. Anybody, can kind of put something together, but there's so much more to it. And probably I've even told you what I'm doing on the back end with the keyword research. I think just kind of putting those puzzle pieces together and that type A detail orientedness mixed with the creativity of being able to put together something that's interesting to read and that is, going to help bring people to your website and get to know you better. It's all just it just kind of fills my cup. yeah, I think the keyword research was something I didn't know about. I didn't know about SEO and keywords, and that's pretty basic for when you're getting into blogging. And for a time, we even thought we might like do a travel blog. And so like I had started like a little travel blog. And as I was kind of learning and trying out some different things, because I mean, bloggers, you can make all this money as a blogger, and it's more than that. But that's kind of where I found like, I wanted to work with people who had businesses, who had beautiful work. I think initially I was planning on working with wedding photographers, and then after working with you and with Chelsea, and seeing, the work and honestly seeing kind of a gap and a need in the market with people who had this amazing content, who needed to put it out there because that's how your clients are going to find you and connect with you. It just kind of was a puzzle piece.
That's actually one of my follow-up questions, and I guess we'll go there now, is why home building? I think you just answered it. So was I one of your first home building clients into that market? Because you just said you were looking at, it seemed like it would be a natural fit to do wedding photography, blogging, and things like that. What was it about the home building? Because I agree with your second part of that, which is there's a huge need here, but let's set that aside. What was it about home building that was attractive, or why that? Because obviously Pinterest and blogging strategies apply to every industry and all industries. So what was it that was so fulfilling specifically about, construction and home building?
I mean, some of it was, new to me. I'm still learning so much about all the different techniques and things like that. But I mean, gosh, how fun is it to get to like look at all of these beautiful pictures, and working with Chelsea, I felt like I got to know a lot of people, especially in the Minnesota market where you guys are. I feel like I'm kind of connected with a circle of people there, but you were my first home builder client. I know. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you trusting me. And as I kind of wormed my way into the blogging and all of that too, I don't know exactly what. I just saw it and was like, I think that this might be a better place for me than wedding photographers. On some level, I feel like it might be a little bit easier for a home builder or an interior designer to invest in my services. They're maybe a little more stable than, a young photographer. And then the photography market is also just really saturated with people doing Pinterest and blogging. And so, I saw that, started talking to people and hearing a lot where they're like, oh yeah, I need to blog, but it's on my to-do list. I can do it. I'm just going to wait. And
I would suspect there's a couple reasons why. One is when you're talking about a home, everyone loves a good story. You look at movies and books and, the way history used to be passed down, going way old school here is just by stories, by telling, right? And so people are really drawn into a story. And I think what a blog does very well is it takes some pictures, but essentially it's weaving a story of something that's happening. It also brings you to the point. So if you are looking at doing a kitchen remodel, or you're looking at, I've had you drive, we did one recently about humidity and condensation, for a very specific reason, but it's very informative and it's helpful. And there are people that, you just go into Google and Google eats this stuff up like, a kid in a hot summer ice cream stand. Like, this thing is going fast because Google just wants, you talk about content. We'll talk about that in SEO maybe in a little bit, but I can see why home building because each build is different, the variety is so much. And I'm not saying like a wedding wouldn't have, the couples are a variety, but, there's so much interest in home building. I think I had read somewhere that, as a percentage of GDP, outside like the federal government spending, that home purchases, whether it's DIY or construction in general, is the largest portion of GDP in the country. And so we have a very strong culture around, I'll do the air quotes, of the American dream. And, it's a very polarizing topic because, people, even it's in the DNA, right? People, left Europe, immigrated to the United States, they were obviously fleeing persecution. They want opportunity, and owning your own home and owning your own land in a lot of places was not a normal thing. And so it's funny how that even multiple generations later, it is such a strong backbone to our DNA. and thought process. But anyway, that we went on a tangent there.
No,
But I think that's why
I
people
completely
gravitate
agree.
so strongly to it. So
Yeah. And I mean, the amount of content that you can create with even one project, it doesn't even have to be a whole home. There's probably over 100 different blog topics and things that you could talk about. But even just, a kitchen remodel, from the flooring or the paint choices or the tile or the under cabinet outlets, like there's all kinds of different things that you can highlight and share about, and telling those stories is awesome. And it's just like a way that I can get your viewers, your audience to connect with you and nurture them. And then that's like one part of it. But then on the other hand, it's all the SEO. It's just, every single blog has a keyword that is, we're focusing on, and that's a search term that, I can nerd out about that all day. But, it's those terms are every blog is an opportunity for someone to find you on Google.
I love what you shared on your website. It says your work is already Pinterest worthy. We'll make sure everybody knows it. I love that. That's a great line. And you're right. I mean, there's so many builders, electricians, roofers, plumbers. I mean, the construction field at large does a very poor job at scale of sharing what we know. And you look at, Instagrammers and those that, sometimes I can't remember her. It's been a while since I've looked at her feed. I think she was called the Tile Chick. And she was a lady that just, that she installed tile, and she had crazy amount of followers. And like, I guess where I'm going with this is like, you have people that do something very specifically. Some people are marketers. I'll call myself a marketer. Like, as far as actually knowing how to build something myself, not trusting people, my skill set would be very low. And then so people follow me for different reasons. And then you have certain people that, they can build something, and they know all the science behind it, and they're gravitate. And then people that are following them. I just love that social media there's a place for everybody, depending on what your interest is. You might be interested in how a business runs. You might be interested in how a business thinks. You might be interested in how to do something. Now, how often have I asked you to do something? You're like, good question. Let me Google it. And so essentially these blogs are the answer to those questions in a much more thought out and detailed way. And, you've done a phenomenal job for me specifically in trying to help. We build a beautiful home. We've aligned ourselves with tremendous talents around us, but now you're just helping us, kind of get recognized for what we do. And we have I think a lot of people put thought into their work without being thoughtful about explaining it. I mean, how often does someone say like, what do you do? And you stay pretty high level, but I feel like a well-written blog goes really deep and is very specific and is probably very narrow in focus because it's answering a specific question. I mean, do you think that's a helpful strategy when you're writing a blog, is to be the more specific, the better, or not?
Yeah. I mean, I think it just kind of depends. I think there's so many opportunities to get really creative with the content that you're going to put out. I mean, there's a lot of home building blogs. And so something I've been trying to do lately has been finding different angles and certainly going deeper. Every single step deeper that we go, we can be more specific, still using kind of searchable terms, but providing just really valuable information. And that's what Google wants. I mean, we can write fluffy blogs all day long, and those are not going to do as well as something that's more specific, I think, because that's what people want, quality content. And that's, what's going to do well on Pinterest as well as just me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Pinterest. And a lot of this is, you have really expanded my mind. So I'd like to go back to when my mind was not as expanded, where, I thought Pinterest is where a lot of our clients, Pinterest and House is where a lot of our clients, when we met them for the first time, would have a lot of pictures of their home saved. And, I'd look at my wife, in bed oftentimes, and she would be, she'd have a bunch of boards of different things that she's interested in. And I'm not, this isn't meant to be a sexist statement, but it's only been my own personal observations about myself. Like, I am not somebody that goes on Pinterest and saves a bunch of things. My wife is, and the clients that I've worked with, it's mostly women that I see anyway on Pinterest. And I think the stats back that up when when you pull a Pinterest report, you can see, gender demographics as well as, where they are in the country, downloading stuff or pinning it. And I didn't realize just what a powerful search engine Pinterest was. I had no idea. Can you speak a little bit of just how big of a search engine Pinterest actually is, and why, as a builder, even if you're not using it, why it should be important to you. And even, not even builder, but frankly, any business that's selling or doing any service, you should be active on Pinterest. Let's speak a little bit about the benefits of Pinterest?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, Pinterest, I mean, I think it's about 500 million users, active users, and they're growing like crazy. And I think the best thing that Pinterest does is traffic to your website. I mean, certainly that is like, they are very good at that. Different than Instagram, it's not really a social media platform. It kind of gets lumped in with that, but it is purely going to drive traffic, and then from there gives you the opportunity to nurture those people, to funnel them into whatever you want. So, we can take that traffic to your website, and we can put them, funnel people to an email list if that's where you want them. We can, obviously share, quality content and have them become hopefully a follower, someone who relates to you and is excited about the work that you're doing. In your case, you were building a podcast, and so you were interested in just some solid traffic to your website, so you could use that. So you could show yourself as an industry leader. I have clients who have, digital products where we're, working on selling a digital product and just getting kind of passive income from those things. I mean, what you can do with the traffic is exciting and astounding, and it goes hand in hand, obviously, with the blogging. But if you have good quality content and you have a solid funnel, that is, I mean,
well, I think
so much with that.
you can almost work this backwards, right? So, you have everyone at this point in their career should have a solid website that you're proud of, that represents your professional work, and that gets you in contact. That's like your landing page. And I've heard before too, like, you don't own a lot of things socially, but you own your website, and you can own your mailing list, your email list, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And that's why you're trying to get people to your website. So if you spend all this money on Pinterest or blogging, but have a lousy website, you've just spent a lot of time and money bringing people to a place that now reflects poorly on your brand. So don't you think you should almost think about this in reverse order? You should have a very solid website that you're proud of and that represents your brand very effectively. And then sort of the funnels that lead you there, now you're just trying to increase traffic, whether it's Google or Pinterest or some other means. Is that accurate?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think I'll have clients where their, websites okay, and then they're, do the rebrand, and, we start kind of generating the blog content for them. And then, all from there, once they go live, then we can just have everything up and running. So, but certainly, yeah, you want your website to really reflect who you are and be something that is going to draw in people.
I think, to relate to home builders out there that are listening, I think it's like, if you had a parade of homes, like that's your website. Like if your house is on the parade, but then when people come, you got on, and you want people to come through your house, and you spent a bunch of money on ads and whatever. So you have 1,000 people lined up in the street to come see your house, but all your windows are dirty, or nobody's cleaned the house, or it hasn't been painted. I think that's a good analogy of like, if you have a website that doesn't reflect you, you just wasted a ton of money because now not only have all those people come, now they're kind of annoyed that they spent time getting there. And so I do think you really need to spend a lot of time thinking about your website and keeping it update. I think a lot of times people, especially I've seen, not the higher end builders, because they are spending a lot of time, or they should. I shouldn't say all of them. It's a blanket statement. But there's a lot of people that, they do their website and then they don't touch it for 10 years till it needs to be redone. Well, man, that work gets so dated. And if you're not staying current, not only is it reflecting poorly on you, but you're missing a huge opportunity for Google to help rank you higher and higher. And that is what I found. Again, going back to my own stereotype about myself, I mean, I think surrounding yourself and having a team of people that don't think like you, so you don't fall into that groupthink, is paramount to making your business more well-rounded and more approachable. And I guess I'll go down this rabbit hole a little bit. Like, I would say, women, or the misses that we build for, I would say, like, they make 80 to 90% of the decisions. And not that the husband doesn't, and not that they're not a good couple making decisions together, but really most home decisions are made by, the woman. I used to famously joke about my wife, who and as I told her one time that, people pay me for my opinion when we were remodeling our house. And she joked and said, I'm not paying you. The point is, even a builder doesn't get say in his own house. It's my wife. And where I'm going with this is that, as a man, especially myself, it was a huge misstep on my part not to realize that I knew that my clients are mostly women in terms of who I have to relate to and talk to, but I was missing out on how to market to them because I'm thinking like a man and I'm thinking like me. And I think something that you really helped me with and other people on my team, coincidentally, I think there's like 5 people on my team that are all women. So just hire more women until you can pretty much solve this problem. It is my advice to builders out there listening, or any business owner. It is really just this well-rounded strategy of Pinterest and all these other things, the blogs, because guess who reads them? It's your clients. It's who you're building your homes for. It's how it gets educated. And, we can speak, we can even talk a little bit later about LinkedIn and some other places that, maybe predominantly are more male dominated if you wish. But for what blogging has done for me, I was blown away that, the analytics, and maybe you can share some of our analytics going into this, what kind of website boost do we get and what kind of traffic are we getting? Because I think when I first started with you, you said you need to give this 3 to 6 months to really take ground. And then I think we did it for a year, 6 months. And I think financially, I'm Alyssa, I have to pull back a little bit. So we pulled back and we saw a significant fall off in website traffic because of it. And then, things changed economically. And I said, we need to actually reprioritize that. So I've seen having nothing, then I've seen kind of like a 6-month approach, then I've seen it pull it back, and now we're back kind of onto onboarding again and trying to get our Pinterest analytics up again, all with the concept of getting everything to the website. So maybe speak a little bit, to that if you can.
Yeah. Yours was so much fun. Obviously, yours was my first Pinterest account outside of our own that I got to just play with and learn from. And so we started January. I take screenshots all the time of all my analytics because I love tracking all that stuff. And so January 2nd, you were at 6,000 impressions. You had 53 saves, Pinterest saves, so just people pinning, and 52 outbound clicks to your website. And that's in a month. So it's pretty consistent.
This was when I first started 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
January 2nd. And then by the 24th, we were at 123,000 impressions. So we had 20 times it, 1,000 saves and 820 outbound clicks to your website.
Wow. So to recap, that went from 52 to 800 hits just organically.
Yep. And so I was looking at your numbers even yesterday. And yeah, I mean, we're still getting, I think right now, because we're ramping back up. So I think we're about 500 clicks to your website. And it's cool because they're going to blogs, they're going to your content. It's not just front page and then clicking off. You can kind of see people are clicking through your portfolio pages. They're clicking through blogs. And I think what's really cool too, when someone's interested in you on Pinterest, they're clicking into your stuff and they're genuinely interested. They're searching for that specific thing. Whether it's, something, a type of house or, whatever. Yeah, it's driving traffic to your website. Unlike, even Instagram is trying to keep people on your website. Pinterest is driving people to your website. And that is what I love, because then you have the power to funnel and do all of the kind of the other stuff.
I think Morgan Molitor had mentioned, and I guess I'd have to fact check this, but outside of Google, Pinterest was the largest search engine out there. Do you know if that's true or not?
That sounds right. I don't know any other search engines besides Bing or DuckDuck, whatever.
Right. Google's obviously the elephant in the world. What's
sure.
interesting about that?
I would say that sounds right.
Yeah. Pinterest obviously is feeding into Google as well. So it's kind of a multiplier. Yes. That's amazing. So if you're getting, we went from 52 to let's call it 800, hits a month on our website. We recently just announced a development called Honey Hill, and we paid a local magazine, I think it was $3,800 for a one-time email event to, was it 30,000 emails? And of that 30,000 emails, it led to 1,000 hits on our website, which I was happy to do. And I was happy with those results. But now just hearing you say that, our investment with you managing our Pinterest, which is ongoing, is far less than that one-time event, and yields per month, a similar amount. So that's kind of interesting. I think people, and I think there's still a time and place, for a special event. The other thing too about, paying an outside company to maybe get a hold of their email list is you might be reaching new. So I still think there's a lot of value in that. But I think just from a perspective standpoint, if we're getting, let's just round up a little bit, 1,000 new hits a month off your website through Pinterest, and I don't know what I'm paying you for just that portion, because you do like 18 other things for me. But it's a great value. And again, I think companies that are bigger than me, we're a pretty small company, but if you're trying to convert those to leads, to sales, you can go into all kinds of other analytics that we necessarily don't go into. But anyway, that's pretty impressive. Then I guess speaking of downloads, I always thought a blog was like a written manuscript of like five, like almost like a periodical or like an editorial. Basically, correct me if I'm wrong, a blog is pretty much anything that you put on your website with some words, and like in very short term. And so one thing that I was really shocked by having a podcast is every single week on our website, curiousbulderpodcast.com, we are putting crazy amounts of data into there because it's weekly. So 52 events a year is happening. And this is just the podcast, right? So we've got photos, we're recapping the guest, we're hyperlinking to, you're doing all this work, obviously. You're hyperlinking to all of our guests, our YouTube channel. It's like the website is still the funnel that leads to everything. But because it's a blog, essentially the way in the form that it's written, and we can, it's also evergreen, like that blog stays there forever. And I think I didn't realize tracking it, like, we'll have a podcast episode, and let's just say, let's say you have an episode that hits 1,000 in 2 weeks. I was told once that by the end of the year, whatever you hit will be triple that, so that you'll be at 3,000. And here's the thing. Those numbers just keep going up and up and up because someone might not stumble onto that episode or that person for a couple of years after the episode was released. Yeah. Now, I would imagine that probably 70 to 80% of the people do find it that are following the show right away. But the idea that it's always out there is super appealing, because to sponsors, you can kind of tell someone like, hey, if you're sponsoring, the Curious Builder podcast or whatever you're sponsoring, that this content is not only evergreen, but you're going to be repping a brand out there indefinitely for years. Because I don't think anyone would go back to old episodes and remove sponsors. That would be crazy amount of work and editing. Nor do why would you do that? But that's something I probably need to work on for next year in terms of selling to our sponsors. Is like, hey, you're going to, especially if you're going to be in business for a while, align yourself with companies that will be there for a long time, and really help them understand that, by aligning with whatever your company proposition is on a blog of any sort. You don't have to have a podcast. Any blog will do. It's going to be there forever, and it's going to point to their website and to your website, as long as their company is around. There's huge potential there. This episode is brought to you by Pella Northland. For 19.5 years, I've been building homes, and 95% of all of my homes have used Pella windows. I couldn't be happier to call them a partner in our builds and our remodels. Whether you're an architect, a designer, or a remodeler, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. They can fit old homes, new homes, reclaimed, commercial, and really everything in between. Pella is a company that we trust and that we recommend to our clients. Additionally, in management, Peter and Ed have just been absolute fantastic people to work with, as well as mentors to me personally. So when it comes time to look for a window, I'd highly recommend Pella windows. Find more at pellanorthland.com. Also, if you're interested, you can hear episode 1 where I interview Peter and Ed together for a great listen on business and Pella windows. This episode is brought to you by Adaptive, the software for builders that automates draws, budgets, and bookkeeping with AI. For over a year now, I've been partnered with Adaptive, and they've just been an amazing game changer in terms of efficiency in our time and all our bookkeeping. From the time we get an invoice, we import it into their system. The AI codes it, cost codes it, job codes it. All we have to do is review it, pass it through the people internally in the office, all digitally, and then it gets approved and paid all via ACH. It's becoming extremely fast and saving us countless hours a day and a week. When it comes to draws, all of our budgets now are set in Adaptive as well. So now when we cost code against the draws, we can do our change orders. And then with a click of a button, we can submit these draws to our title companies or to our homeowners for faster payment. If you're looking to save time and if you're looking to be accurate, I highly recommend Adaptive. Additionally, if you'd like to listen to one of their founders share the story of Adaptive, you can listen to episode number 15 on the Curious Builder podcast.
Yeah, I love that both Pinterest, the investment that my clients make in Pinterest and in blogging is all of it is evergreen. It's not a 24-hour little, thing that you have to keep consistently chasing. I've seen people with, I've hopped into Pinterest accounts that people have worked on years ago that, still have 60,000 impressions a month. They're still driving traffic to their website and they haven't touched it in years. And then, I'm able to come in and optimize it and, get started on it. And then of course it grows dramatically, but, the work and the investment that you're putting into those things it's evergreen. It's going to benefit you for a very, very long time. You even had pins that went viral when I started that there was like it was a house. I remember you saying at one point you would get calls.
Yeah. So that's funny you say that. So we had a house and I don't know how it got on Pinterest. Oh, I know. I must have had an account or I just saw it or something. Anyway, a well-known designer pinned it in, I think it was North Carolina or South Carolina. And we had I remember one time at the time I was hiring a different company just to, analyze my old website. This is 6-7 years ago. And we were normally getting, this is a long time ago, we got, let's say 500 or 1,000 hits a month. We got 30 or 40,000 hits one month, just a massive anomaly. And everyone was like, what happened? What did you do? I'm like, nothing. We didn't have a show on. We didn't have anything. Well, that was my first taste of, Pinterest stardom, if you will, is someone pinned it, it'd be like if LeBron James, posted something, all of a sudden this designer posted this photo of our home and it went wild. And even to this day, it's much less frequent now, maybe only one. It's
done it a couple times since
Yeah, and it kind of will relight on fire. Mm-hmm. But early on, I was getting about an email a week or a phone call, and they're all from South and North Carolina, Raleigh, Tennessee, and it was I laugh because they always have these great accents. I'm from the North, right? And so I'd impersonate my Southern accent, and someone would call and say, "Oh yeah, me and the missus would love that front porch." That's beautiful. I could just have some sweet tea and, can I buy that plan for you? And, it would always lead to a call and, and I was like, you do beautiful work. We'd love to build with you. I'm like, unfortunately, I only build in Minnesota. By the way, I apologize to anyone in the Southeastern. My accent is awful. I know. But anyway, my point is that was real actionable. If I had a worldwide company or a nationwide company or in different markets, you could do something with that. I actually did try to monetize it. This was early on. I was still working out how to do some of this, but I tried to sell, I got clearance from my, this particular one was a home designer and a draftsman. So I got a price from them and said, hey, if I ever sell this plan, you get this percent and I get this percent. And so I tried to sell the plan to people. But ultimately, one of the things I found by doing that is, people in different states in particular, they don't always, the home price that I don't know exactly, but let's say, let's just say a $2 million house in Minnesota, might be $700,000 in Texas. I don't know. But there are certain places in the United States where, Minnesota is actually a pretty expensive place to build. And so when I would try to, I'm not just going to give somebody the plans. We spent, a year developing that plan. We designed it. A lot of times people would ask for it for free. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to give it to you for free. I will sell it to you. I don't even remember what I was charging. It was pretty minimal. Not once, not a single time did anyone actually pay me for the plan. Whenever it actually came down to it, they weren't willing to pay for what they wanted. And I talked to a number of people, and so I actually got to the point where I actually pre-made an email that I could just copy and paste because I was getting so many emails off of that one Pinterest. Anyway, we've kind of strayed off the topic. I guess the point is Pinterest is powerful. And, and it goes viral sort of in a different way. Obviously Instagram goes viral, you get a bunch of hits and a bunch of views on whatever, but Pinterest, leads you to your actually website. And so, and not that Instagram and those other things don't, but, I actually, you said it well, Pinterest tries to send you to websites where the other entities try to keep you there. And I think that's a fundamental difference.
Yeah, and I also think, kind of speaking to the viralness of Pinterest, it's really doable to grow. And I feel like on Instagram, you might try to get a viral post or try to do something, and my husband will put together reels for our photo business, and we're like, this is the best reel ever, and it doesn't really go anywhere, and you're like, ugh, I just feel like a hamster on a wheel. Whereas on Pinterest, you can have, certainly you can have a strategy on Instagram, and there's some incredible people who do that. But with Pinterest, for example, Minnesota home builders, if you search on Pinterest, Minnesota home builders, you are all over there.
Oh, really?
And there's 1,600 people a month search that term.
Wow.
And, so, those are kind of the things that we're popping up. You have one of the pins with Bridget Chigurros.
Chirigos, yeah.
Chirigos. She, the one of, I think it's in the
Deep Haven Dream.
Yes, I love that one. And that one's every month is one of your most popular pins. And so it's just kind of picking those keywords and being strategic with who you want people to find you in Minnesota, because you're not in North Carolina. And so, there are people actively searching even location-based type searches in Pinterest, not only just Google.
And we would have, we have a different strategy, obviously, for the Curious Builder, because we're across the country and anyone can find us there. So it's a different strategy. So, if you're out there listening and you got to consider Pinterest strategy, you don't have to think about it too far. Just call Alyssa.
I got you.
All right. She'll take care of it. But for those that don't, you can basically it's just another form of marketing. And I like the content that it's evergreen. Maybe to just kind of, I like practical examples, and it really, to me, it highlights, your specific skill, which is super helpful. A lot of times, like a lot of business owners, we're really busy, we're bouncing around. And so it's hard. The idea is sort of daunting, or at least it is to me, to write something that's well thought out, very well written, conveys your brand, gets to a point. And so it's just oh man, it's just easier just not to do it. And what I appreciate about you is you'll send me an email with you and I will discuss, monthly or quarterly, what are the 6 or 7 topics we want, to publish, whether it's a newsletter or however people like to push stuff out. And, we'll come up with our topics, whatever they are. Sometimes they're for sponsors, sometimes for Mark Williams Custom Homes. It's something I want to, a parade of homes or an event or something like that, or a recap of something that we've done. And then what I love is you'll send me 7 questions that I can just respond to in my own words. And then you essentially walk the audience through what you do, because then what comes out, it makes me look like Walt Whitman or some, genius prose writer, just because I'll look at him wow, that's way nicer than I could have written it. And it's so well thought out. I'm like, who is this builder? I would work with this person. And so, and I understand that's a skill that you have. It's, no different than a painter or a trim carpenter, doing excellent work. But walk us through, I just wrote something down right now. Let's do a kitchen blog, because a lot of people can relate to that. So if I said, Alyssa, I want to do a kitchen blog, and I want to talk about, natural light in the kitchen, and I want to highlight, cabinets. Walk me through a little bit your process. Not, as specific as you can on the spot, but just walk the audience through what is your process? Because even if someone tries to do it themselves, they'll gain some appreciation for what actually has to go into that.
Sure. So, the questionnaire, I do that. I do it with all my clients. So if, my goal is to make it as hands off and as easy for them as possible, because if you wanted to write a blog, you would do it yourself. So, I send over, questions. So I'm trying to think through what, obviously I'm picking a keyword. I'm doing some keyword research on the front end to make sure that, the topic is going to be something that is going to be worth our time. Let's see, in a cabinet, I think what's cool about something like that is, I like hearing kind of the story behind it or the purpose. I'm not a home builder. I'm definitely I love reading those blogs. I love learning. I'm like a DIYer kind of person myself. So finding that inspiration. And yeah, I think when I'm kind of putting together questions, I'll sit there for a minute and really try to think through like what is going to help tell this story. Why are we doing this? Gosh, we did, trying to think, like even like tile backsplash, something like that. What kind of tile? Let's talk about some of the different brands. I want to find things that we can possibly link and share. I'm also thinking through like, what are some things not to do? What are some things to avoid? Why are we choosing, different colors or different, all those kinds of things. And so, I think
the context is helpful. I like how you think about, what obviously, what is the messaging? One of the things I think, and especially with, Chat GPT and other AI models, we do use that to help shape sometimes or get us through it. But, for those out there that would be like, oh, you can just, write into AI, like, hey, write me a 300-word blog. And it probably can do that. Walk the audience through what you have to be careful of that. Because we've had some experience where that doesn't really work very well.
Yeah.
It's a helpful tool, but it's not the end result. Because I think a lot of people would be tempted to be like, well, why would I hire someone to do this for me? Can you walk us through the pros and cons of using AI and what some of its limitations might be?
Definitely. I mean, AI is a great tool. I think it's something, there's times where I have, the roadblock, and I'll use that to just kind of start generating ideas and thoughts and try to get something different. But honestly, people who are just writing blogs on AI, Google's really cracking down on some of that. And there's been a lot of just bloggers even lately who have seen crazy dips in their analytics because Google is recognizing some of that. And so even when I do we have certain blogs where we use, for you specifically, where we'll use AI a little bit more. I go through and I clean up things that sound like a robot. It doesn't sound as warm. You can't really get your brand voice just right when you're using a robot. And so certainly you can push content out, and I don't think it would do nearly as good as when you actually have a real life person who can kind of differentiate the brand voice and the brand tone and truly understand the purpose and the vision behind, whatever we're trying to put out and connect with people. I think that's,
if I'm wrong, I think the AI, it's a language model, right? So it's basically just taking what's out there, reshuffling it, regurgitating it, reordering it, which sometimes can be very helpful. I use it actually quite a bit in LinkedIn. I'll write all my thoughts down and it gets kind of the spirit of what I want. And then I'll have it often, I'll just hit, rewrite. And so it'll take something I already wrote and rewrite it. And I'm like, ooh, I like that. And sometimes it'll get some of the tenses and some of the nuances wrong. And so I'll have to modify it. But to your point, it's a helpful tool, but not one that can really replace, especially branding is so important to me, and I'm not an expert, but I just love it. And it's like, I really want everything that the client touches and feels and sees and hears, to be on brand to the best of my ability. And, anyway, so one of the things, again, I appreciate about you specifically, and I think this is where having a relationship with somebody, not only do you get to see the photos, and the videos from, obviously coming from Chelsea or my other photographers, but then, as obviously like anybody, you get to know people, you get to know their business, you understand what I'm trying to do. And in some ways you become me, or you become the brand, because the way you're writing it from like if it was you. And I really appreciate that skill that you're able to do that. I think that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, no, I think that's something I strive to do with all my clients, and part of my discovery onboarding portion of bringing on a new client. I get all of their brand stuff. I love when they have a brand guide and I can really pour through and get an idea for that. I go through their Instagram, their past blogs, their website, everything that I possibly can to really kind of put together my own brand voice. And so I have that for each of my clients, so that as I go and as I grow, as I hire, copywriters and different people to help me manage everything, I will have those things, because that's so important. If I'm writing blogs and it doesn't sound like you, it kind of is it's kind of awkward. And so that's definitely a pillar of what I do when I'm kind of getting all the branding branding stuff ahead of time.
Have you ever had a client, and it can be me, have you ever had a client where it's like you write it and they're like, no, and like they're basically harming themselves because, what they want is like, yeah, the public's not going to want this. Because I'll usually ask you like, hey, and obviously I've left the door very open for you to just be like, no, I think this would be better. I'll be like, okay, great. But I mean, are most clients like that, or do some people have a pretty strong opinion and they're constantly like trying to change what you're writing, or are most people pretty hands off because they've hired you for a reason and you're obviously excellent at what you do? What are managing some of those relationships like?
Yeah, I have a variety. I don't really have anyone who's like super like rewrite this whole thing. Most people, we've gotten to the point where, they trust me. I do with my clients, like I'll write the drafts for the month and then send those over to them so they can see them, and we'll have little tweaks here and there. But usually anything like that would be in the very beginning, and it's just kind of, I tell them like, hey, this first couple months is my learning period. I'm learning who you are. I'm learning your brand voice. And so, certainly like, please, I want to get that right. Like that's important to me. And so, yeah, I mean, I've never had anybody that was like really hard on me with that. But I'm glad. I mean, I feel like most of my clients, by the time we get to writing blogs, they trust me and they know that, I'm on their side and I'm working for them and want to be kind of morph into them who they are when we're writing. So,
all right.
Yeah.
What you had mentioned earlier, and maybe now is a good time to talk about it, but SEO strategy, I think myself included, I think we understand, search engine optimization, and we spoke a little bit about, Pinterest and blogging, but talk to us a little bit about strategy and that fresh content. Why is fresher content more valuable, or is it more valuable than, let's say, older content? Walk us a little bit of, this SEO strategy, and then a little bit about how blogging and Pinterest kind of form into or fold into, an actual SEO strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, big topic. Yeah.
I'm trying to like pare it down. I mean, having a solid SEO strategy, obviously that's huge. And with that, I would say, that's part of like the very first thing that I'm going to do with a client. I'm going to go in and do keyword research and see where they're at. And I've got some pretty cool tools, to use. I mean, having your strategy, I mean, that is, gosh, can you go ask the question?
Well, no, I think that's right. I think you actually, I think your SEO strategy is a little bit like the blueprint of the house, right? I mean, it's the path that you are orchestrating everything around. So maybe I was just asking, like, how does Pinterest and blogs, how does that support your overall SEO strategy? So let's say you've got your website, you've got your social channels, you have your Pinterest, you have your blogging, and we'll focus mostly on Pinterest and blogs because that's what you do specifically. Why, like, how do they help support an SEO strategy?
Got it. So yeah, I mean, I feel like you kind of start with the blogs. So, you had asked about like refreshing content. So fresh content, Google loves that. They love seeing content that is popping up over and over again, new stuff that relates and is valuable to what they see you talking about. So a home builder. You had mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that, there's some people who just put their website out there and they're like, I did everything and I'm good to go. And certainly, you could be found, but people are going to start creeping up on the Google and going higher and higher where you're not really growing because you're not putting out fresh content. And so there's a couple kind of like tips and tricks of the SEO game. Essentially, you want to have content that's coming out consistently. You want it to be obviously relevant and valuable. And so those are kind of the two things that I'm gauging. When we're finding keywords and different things like that, sure, I want to find stuff that is when you're choosing keywords, you're looking for stuff that has a good amount of searches every month, but also something that is, reasonably competitive. There's kind of a scale that I can look at and see. I think the other thing that also can be valuable if you have a lot of old blogs is going back and revitalizing those. I had a client that just started and they have like 135 old blogs and they're great. There's a lot of things that I think we can go in and do and tweak. And we'll do that so we can reuse some of that content going into kind of how it's evergreen.
So a question on it. Let's just say you have 100 blogs and let's just say you named 1 through 100. And let's say number 17 was a great one. And you're like, I think we should republish 17. Do you go back and modify number 17 or do you create number 101 and it's basically number 17 just rewritten, new pictures, kind of like basically recapping what 17 was? What's the right way to go there from an SEO standpoint?
I would definitely do a blog for it, a new one, just to kind of revitalize. But then I also would go back through it and just kind of see like, what did we do? What were the keywords? What did we do right so that we can move, we can replicate that. And I do that on Pinterest a lot too. I'll look back at the analytics and see what pins were doing so good. And for home builders, a lot of my home builders, their pins of just images of their homes. Better than.
It's so funny you say that. I mean, I remember when we first, actually, you and I haven't done it in a while because I just know you're doing it. So I don't need to micromanage it, obviously. But I remember we had like just some plain mudrooms, like nothing fancy, like nothing that great. And, sometimes I think as home builders, and I think our website is for this, we want to show our best work, a beautiful work. That's what we want to do more of. But you go on Pinterest and like, I remember seeing a mudroom that I did in like 2009 that was nothing fancy, but think about this. You just mentioned there's a 500 million. Did you say there's a 500 million?
Billion.
So there's a 500 million people can't afford the homes that I build. I mean, I can't afford the homes that I build. And so the point of it is like that mudroom is way more approachable to a 500 million people than some ridiculous over the top home. And I'm not saying don't show the most ridiculous home over the top because it's cool, but keep in mind that even some basic photos, things that I think this is where sometimes you need a well-rounded team because, just because we all have really great mudrooms or just basic mudrooms doesn't mean that someone isn't doing a little DIY project, in Wisconsin on their cabin or, they're in Iowa and they want to do a new front porch. And you just don't know where someone is going to search for something. So I think that's where quantity is really helpful. If you're putting a lot of pins out there that, it could be just a bathroom sink. Well, it could be the bathroom sink to Taylor Swift's, master bedroom, or it could be a bathroom sink in a barn. I mean, there's a huge range there of sinks, and yet someone might like it. And so anyway, I guess my point is you never know what somebody is going to like. So don't be afraid to post a lot on Pinterest. I feel like you can be a little less brand sensitive. I don't think you put out junk out there, but I wouldn't probably put a powder unless it was a sweet powder room. I mean, I would probably not just put a regular bathroom vanity on my website because I'm going to try to eliminate some of the fluffy photos, or not fluffy, just I don't want 100 photos per my gallery. I want to have like 7 to 10. And I think sometimes like architects do too few. Like architects will do like the shot of the front and like one kitchen. And everyone's like, well, what about the other 12 photos? And I get that they do it for a reason. Like, nope, you got to reach out to us if you want to see the rest. Where, everyone has a different comfort zone and how much they want to share. But I think Pinterest is a great place to honestly share as much as you can and have time for or willing to pay for, because how can it really hurt you? It can only help you.
Yeah. And that's something like, strategy wise, we had kind of slowed down and ramping back up. I'm definitely evaluating where we're at, and I'm shifting strategies, and I'm always doing that with my clients because algorithms change, things change, and so what's working here might not work there, but then it could go viral in a year and a half. So it's just, I think with Pinterest, what I love is I can test things out, I can try things. My clients trust me. We're good. We're seeing growth either way. And then it's like finding that sweet spot and just really.
I just thought of something funny off the blue. So I had interviewed my dad over Christmas, maybe 15, 20 episodes ago, and he was building in the 70s and 80s. And that my mom ended up being an interior designer for him. But before they met, he used to, his homes were much, much more modest than what I build now. But he would just call like the paint store and say, what's your most what's your best selling paint color? And then you would call the carpet company and like, hey, what's your best selling carpet? And he would just order that, and he would just go, it's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, there's certainly a lot better things, but he was basically just letting the people decide what was in his home. And where I'm going with this is like, I haven't done a spec home in a long time, and I'm considering about doing one again here for Honey Hill, or development up in Orono. And my thought process behind it is it'd be interesting to go into Pinterest, specifically for, let's say, the homes that we do, and prioritize like what are the favorite styles, what are the favorite homes, the favorite bathrooms, the favorite colors, like how you could use some of that data to sort of infer what your local market, or I think you have to be a little careful there, because if I'm building a house that someone in Florida wants in Minnesota, maybe the person in Minnesota doesn't want that house. So I think you'd have to be a little thoughtful. I don't know how you would pare down the information, but you get the concept. Do you think you could use Pinterest to identify what your client actually wants you to build?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting idea. I feel like you could look at your own pins. I mean, you've got years worth of content out there now, so you could see the analytics on different styles. You also could use keywords and see what people are searching for, what people are looking for. There's a lot of resources out there for that too, and specifically in a specific area. So whether it's Minnesota as a whole or Minneapolis, I mean, you could get as detailed as you want. But I think,
do you think
that's a fun idea.
Maybe this is a social Instagram campaign. What about this idea? What if because everyone loves this or that, and I'm thinking of just two. So what if we did like, and I don't know, would this work better on social media, or do you think it would work better on Pinterest? And what I'm thinking is like, holding on my hands like a this and that. So, 2-story or 1-story, this or that. So then the people vote. And then you show like a kitchen of painted kitchen, kind of a mixed kitchen, or a stained kitchen. So that's like this, that, or another. You have to pick 3 in that one. Yeah. And like, what if you did a series of like 12 this or that posts, and then kind of announce to people like, we're for the next 12 days, we are going to put a this or that out there, and whatever people vote, that is the home that we will design and build. What do you think? What do you think?
I feel like I could see that on Instagram for sure. I feel like you could, just because it's a little more instant. Pinterest is going to take time before those pins will really kind of pull, but that is a fun idea. I like that. You got to write that down.
You could do like
put it on the to-do list.
I will. I actually just wrote it down. I'm gonna run it by Melissa. It'd be like, you could even do like this or that with like architects, this or that with like interior designers, and like basically you'd be like, the people decided, who to pick and what we're going to build. Either the house would, be a fan favorite, or the house would look like, no cohesive design. It'd just look like a rainbow house. But anyway, well, as we come in for the landing here, tell us a little bit about yourself personally. I know you're expecting number 2 here shortly, so that's pretty exciting this summer.
Number 3, actually.
Number 3. Oh,
number 3. I know. Yeah. So I have 2 little ones. They're almost 3. She's almost 3, and my son is almost 4. And baby due in July. So it's going to be madness. But I'm thankful.
When you switch from man defense to zone defense, I'll tell you what, as a dad of 3, it's definitely.
I know.
The third one is a game changer.
I know. I definitely have been asking people who had 3 kids, like, what do I expect? Not that there's anything that you could possibly expect. Everyone's different.
It's the best. I mean, yeah, it's the best thing ever. How? What else? Obviously that's probably the biggest news, and that'll kind of shuffle the deck. Or anything else that you're kind of excited for in 24 or beyond, professionally?
Yeah. No. I mean, I think just with Olive and Vine, my business has been growing, and I'm so excited and thankful. I've been taking calls and doing a lot of onboarding and things like that. So it's weird, obviously, being pregnant and trying to like manage and take things on. I have a small team of people that I have set up to kind of help me during the time that I'm going to be off. So that is good. And yeah. I mean, I have goals and different dreams of growing Olive and Vine, and I'm going to be continuing to push for that. So.
Well, one of the things I loved was like when I first hired you on, and we started working together, you're a virtual assistant. And then now my virtual assistant has a virtual assistant. And I just think that's amazing. I laugh so hard when I think I asked you to do something like 6 months ago and you're like, I'll have my VA take care of that. And I'm like, this is awesome. My VA has a VA.
It was hard to do because I still in my head, I mean, I feel like I'm kind of stepped out of it now, but my husband was like, you can't hire somebody, like you can't do all this. And so, yeah, it is funny to,
I think every business owner can relate to that. We all struggle with it in different forms of, I'm going to do it, or we have a hard time letting go, or, it's in some ways it's almost easier when you can't do something because then you have to hire it. And I think, writing a blog, all the stuff that you do for me, I do not have the skill set for. And so I'm not even tempted to try. And so in some ways it's much, much easier to hire that in. I think when you can do something, I think that's where it gets a little bit more difficult. You're like, oh, I could just do this right now. Right. And I think that's a very common owner's mentality, but,
yeah, no, I definitely in my business have seen, like, there's been times where my husband, he's kind of a jack of all trades. He does web design and graphic design. And so, even at one point thought about having him do my own website. And then I was like, I'm going to invest in someone who knows what they're doing. We're just too close to this. So hire out for someone. And no, I definitely agree with that statement.
What are for those that are listening that are interested in working with you? What are the best places to go?
Yeah, you can find me at oliveandvinesocials.com. You can find me at Olive and Vine Socials on Instagram. We'll have all of that linked, I'm sure, below. But
I'm sure we will. I wonder who will do that for me.
We sure will. I know. I will make sure of it. But yeah, I'm accessible, even, Instagram DMs or email. But I love talking with business owners. I love hearing your stories and your goals. And I truly believe that, Pinterest and blogging is a tool that really can help take you to that next level and grow in a way that, man, it's so worth the investment and the time that goes into it, because it's going to forever help your business. It's just like a foundational thing.
One thing I just thought of here to end on an idea as well that just came to me is, we with the Curious Builder, part of our sponsorship platform is, for our sponsors, we offer them a certain number of blogs about their business because they're obviously supporting the podcast and we want to support them. I never thought about this before. I had heard a builder one time that he was trying to get to work with an architect. So he would pay for an ad for the architect in a magazine, which I thought was a very clever way of ingratiating himself to that architect, right? He's trying to get the architect business, and in return, obviously hoping that the architect will be like, well, thank you. Here's a client. I'm wondering if it wouldn't be kind of a neat gift for people that want to celebrate people in their company or celebrate other businesses or celebrate a trade partner. Not everyone's going to have a podcast, but let's just say you're a builder, you're ABC builder, and you are really impressed with your cabinet shop. And, you would reach out to a blogger like yourself, and you would say, as a thank you, I would like to write basically a blog on the behalf of my company for this company. And then you would publish it or send it to them. Like, that'd be kind of a thoughtful way that businesses could kind of, sometimes we have a hard time of knowing, like, how do you thank someone who's gone above and beyond? And we've sort of used the blog both to attract sponsors, but also to be thankful for the people that we work with and celebrate their stories. But anyway, just a side idea that, if someone just wants to dip their toes into it, you could almost like, it's like a thank you. Like, hey, who do you work with that you want to thank? Have Olive and Vine write you a custom blog as a thank you, right? I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and then that's something that's just there forever. And people find the cabinet owner, they find you. Definitely.
Yeah. Maybe this extends personally. Maybe I'll have you write a blog for my wife, and Mother's Day is coming up, or birthdays are coming up. There's no, watch out, Hallmark. Here comes Olive and Vine.
I'm going to write blogs.
Well, very good. Thanks again for coming on. Thanks for everyone that's listening, and have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. We're happy to announce that in 25, we're going to be testing the waters for Curious Builder retreats. We have one in January that's going to be in Minnesota. That's a sauna cold therapy camp for a half a day. We're also trying to gauge interest on a 4-day Costa Rica / Mexico trip. Or in the fall of August of 25, we're thinking about a Curious Builder boot camp. It's basically a way to sort of reset, refresh your mind with other entrepreneurs in the construction field. There'll be some team building, there'll be some journaling, and just really getting deep conversations with your peers across the country. If you're interested, please hit us up and we will be deciding in the next 30 days which one of those is going to be happening. And then we'll be sending out a roll call to see who wants to sign up. We're excited to announce that we have partnered with Harnish Workwear. They're an amazing shirt company. I'm actually wearing it right now if you're on YouTube. Softest shirt I've ever had. Also the most durable. There's a reason these guys make shirts for workwear. If you head to our Curious Builder webpage under the merch channel, you'll see we have a limited time only of our pre-launch of the Curious Builder shirt. We also have our new monogram that's going to be on the back with a cool little custom tag. If you want to support the show, if you want to support what you're listening and small businesses, both for Harnish as well as the Curious Builder, please go there, buy a shirt, buy two, give one to one of your colleagues, maybe one of the tradesmen that you think might like the show, and you're supporting a small business and you're supporting this podcast. So I appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the Curious Builder podcast. If you like what you listen to, please give us a 5-star rating and write us a review. It really means a lot. It's a great way for us to just understand what you like about the podcast and what we can keep doing. So like and review, and please share with your friends and family. Find out more at curiousbuilderpodcast.com.